And one myth which pops up always in my mind is when we talk about postmodernism is the Tower of Babel.
Yeah.
Because Babel means in German. So to your listeners, I'm from Germany. We might talk about the ideological possessions of Germans, but maybe later. Bubble means to babies do bubble, so they don't speak a language. It is not, and then I think the solution to that problem is you have to ask, for what reasons does language exist? And language evolved from music, first thing. But it evolved in order to have a common understanding,
right?
Not one in which the individual determines the understanding. And I think that here is the key to solve the postmodern problem.
Yeah, one of the things that I say repeatedly about the postmodern view, you think that, like the trans movement, for example, and the pronouns thing, like it's like, your identity isn't
really
your identity. Your identity is a negotiation between yourself and everybody else around you.
Yep.
It's so, and that's what language is supposed to do, is come up with a common understanding. When you're taking the position that you're able to force somebody else to view yourself or anything in a way that doesn't work for them, then you're acting as a tyrant, for one, and two, you're breaking down that societal agreement, and because all societies are based upon common understandings.
And now you could apply Lindy argumentation for why you don't mix these common understandings too much, right? You should be conservative with idea progression, let's say, especially mass idea progressions.
And because
how
just
we
like
should
the
organize society.
And just like the story of Babel, like as soon as somebody starts changing the goalposts of language all the time and changing the meanings of things all the time, people stop being able to communicate. You stop being able to work together, and it becomes nonsensical, and then God scattered people all over the earth and gave them different languages, right?
But the initial reason is because people aspire to become God. And that is why God scattered them, and that is why you need, just out of a humble spirit, let's say, a kind of like a metaphysical belief. I don't say you need a thing like God or a being like a being, but you need a metaphysical something, right?
And I would go back to the postmodernists and the people who are believing that all truths are equal, are essentially trying to play God. They are not accepting that some truths are more useful and aligned with God, so to speak, than others. And that's the hubris of the whole thing. They're trying to engineer the world and think that they have the capacity and ability to do so. And that's where I think we're going to get bit in the ass, or are getting bit in the ass over all this shit.
And I think that is, if you would describe myself, like my experience also with the psychedelics, I have been a communist. I have been in this. I've been ideologically possessed. I've been there.
Myself as well. I mean, I wouldn't have called myself a communist, but it was close enough.
Close enough. And I know it didn't help me. It didn't help the people around me. Right. So I made the phenomena, right? The subjective experience of someone. I made this bad. And why do we think the objective world is more valid than this inner experience you have of things, right? I wasn't, but again, I can understand this possession, but I think we might solve it, because I let's say the gender identity problems. So I think there is a problem with the terms, because gender identity is not just male and female. Gender identity describes that And there is a true, but we need to shift the terms. That, let's say you and I are male, right? And
I like to think so.
I agree on that, definitely. But you can have feminine traits that wouldn't make you a female. So,
Yeah,
right?
I think every man and every woman has masculine and
Exactly.
feminine traits.
That's why,
you know,
Buddha, by the way, Buddha was enlightened because he integrated female and male parts. But that's a symbolic reading of that. But we therefore confuse gender identity actually with personality traits,
yeah,
temperament.
yeah.
And we shouldn't take this gender identity completely down into the biological stuff, and therefore say there is no male and female at all, right? And that's why I think it's a problem of terms. But again, we are here in the Tower of Babel phenomenon.
Yeah. It's male and female, masculine and feminine we are confusing in many ways through this term of quality or equivalency of value, something that should be looked at in terms of being complementary, where both things are required in order for the world to go on and life to be good. But they are not the same, and one cannot become the other, so to speak.
Yes. You can have behavioral traits that are more. I like to dance, I like to sing. I would say that is associated more with the feminine part, right? But that doesn't make me a female in that. And I think that is why people, they don't talk about the same things, I would say, right?
Oh no, and I it seems to me that these terms are either being purposefully confused, where, like you were saying about language, you have to come to agreement of what the words mean in order to have a discussion. And when things are slide and have moving goalposts, and like at one point it's genders mean sex, and the other time it means masculine and feminine, it makes it impossible to have an understanding that comes from a commonality, let alone even as you try to establish those terms. If you don't use them correctly, so to speak, you become an evil person, which is just the most noxious part of this whole thing.
I mean, the best